Not to be dramatic, but the All-Stars 10 Snatch Game episode sucked. Drag Race is my safe space, and it has been for a very long time. I escape to Drag Race because it is a place that is not full of the looming darkness that has been, quite frankly, encircling the entire year of 2025. Everything feels heavy and dark and bad right now. As cheesy as the phrase is, the world does need drag now more than ever. And Drag Race is that place that I go to just get away for an hour from everything that is happening here. Gestures vaguely. A lot of you have expressed that this is the exact reason why you keep watching Drag Race. That's why a lot of you didn't like Bracket Pink. I understand that Drag Race is overproduced. I understand that they have an agenda. And normally I can separate my feelings pretty well for how I interpret the show and try and share that interpretation with y'all. But I think everything is just so cloudy right now and so awful. And then everything's just so badly managed and produced. Like, these producers are doing such a bad job at hiding all the string pulling, something that they used to be really, really, really good at. And Drag Race is not the distraction that I needed it to be. And I don't think it is for a lot of people right now. I'm seeing a lot of mixed opinions on the internet. Some people are really living for this episode and how good they think Ginger did, and some people are really living for Mistress causing all this drama and being in the bottom. And they're living for the storylines that are being fed to us. And I'm sorry, I'm just not buying what they're selling to me. And I found this episode kind of frustrating from start to finish. We are finally in bracket 2, and things are just as different as I was expecting them to be. Part 1 of Tournament of All-Stars was Social Game. How well can you convince the room to be on your side so they give you MVQs, and maybe that propels you into round 2, or maybe it just locks in who the producers are pushing and everyone's just trying to be so symbiotic with each other that no one's thinking in the game. And you have such a short amount of time that if you don't figure out your strategy quick, you won't make any waves. Each group had their opportunity to circumvent production, and of everyone, I think Mistress was the one who understood it the best right off the bat, and I think Acid picked it up by episode 2. And then of course, queens like Georges and Alyssa were sort of stooges to these masterminds. Okay, I don't really understand, but if you get it, then I'll follow along with you. And in round 2, the producers are leaving nothing to chance. They do not want these queens to have any opportunity to undermine what their plans may be, which I think is smart if they have a specific agenda for round 2, and if they're trying to balance things out differently than they have in the last 8 All-Stars. RuPaul has not had the exclusive judgment of winner and bottom 2 in a very long time. Not since All-Stars 1. Let that gel up here. RuPaul, as we know, is the executive producer. She knows which of the top 2 she wants to give a win to because she knows what lipstick they're going to pull in a scenario where they are voting. She knows if it's going to be the group vote or the individual if they're trying to eliminate someone in particular. So Ru does ultimately have the final decision, but we as the audience are given the illusion and the impression that the queens have that power, right? Whoever wins the lip sync, whoever the group voted for, when reality informs us that Ru is making that decision no matter what. But we have not had the exclusive optics that RuPaul is doing it entirely herself. And it is so clear what they're doing this time around. It is, I think, more overt than it was even for Purple Bracket. And the producer's job, again, is for us to not notice what they're doing, but they're not doing a good job at that. Even down to the edit, they're not doing a good job at that because the entire storyline was about Ginger this week. It was entirely Ginger focused. And Coco Peru once said, "Less Ginger next time." A few weeks ago, I made a passing comment that the Drag Race production team is unkind to Latinos. And I did get a couple of pushback comments on that. I would like someone to explain to me, in terms that are easy to understand, why every single one of the clips in that super cut intro showed some of the best moments of each one of these queens, of them looking beautiful and glamorous, and then it was Cynthia as an ugly dog. When she absolutely had better looks in the country challenge, in the first 2 runways, in her entrance look. There were so many clips of Cynthia looking pretty that they could have used, and they chose to pull her as a dog. A mother friggin' dog. And I won't lie, a lot of this episode came off as microaggressive towards Cynthia. That was from Rue pretending that she couldn't understand what Cynthia was saying in the Snatch game, having other people repeat what she says. And you see people do this a lot when someone is saying something that everyone in the room can understand, and there's always that one Karen who's like,
what did she say? I just don't understand what she's saying. I can't understand her. It sounded like they said something else.
I am a Latino. It made me uncomfortable. Another microaggressive moment was Michelle saying that Cynthia's Dracula accent was just Cynthia's accent, which was a terrible choice in words, but is just as microaggressive. The words could have come out. You did not do the "Va want to suck your blood" that we want to hear from Dracula, and instead you just sounded like you. Because that's what you would say to any other person. You didn't sound like this person, you sounded like you. Even if Cynthia has an accent, which we all know, it does not need to be commented on. I'm not gonna get hot today, because I'm already hot about everything in this fuck-ass administration right now. And I'm pissed off about the fireworks, because I hate fireworks and my cats are stressed out. I mentioned that Ginger's storyline was really heavy this week. They show her feeling her goats about her wins that she got in her brackets, which I personally don't agree with her stance that she stormed that bracket. And Irene did just as good in orange bracket, but they did not show her feeling herself at all about that, or feeling even slightly confident about that. It was odd because Irene's edit almost made her come across like she was unsure if she should even be there. And it was almost like they were trying to feed us this narrative that she's unsure about even her positioning here, which is weird because they just got here. The editors showed us a softer side of Aja and some of her insecurities with going back to the world of drag after taking a break. And I think this is important storytelling for us as an audience, because I think a lot of people have this perception that Drag Race queens get this golden ticket to bookings as soon as they get off the show, and that's not always the case. The world of drag is so inflated right now with Drag Race performers and people who want to be Drag Race performers, and there are not enough gigs to support the girls. And so I'm glad that Aja was talking about this on Drag Race, because a lot of the girls have talked about it offline, but it doesn't often make the edit. And Drag Race can certainly accelerate your career, but if you take any time away from it, bars and clubs and promoters are not going to run back to you as soon as you're ready to start getting work again, because they want whoever's hot off the press right now. They want whoever is the name on everyone's mouth. They don't want someone who was on a couple of years ago on Drag Race. Doesn't matter how good you were or how much of a legacy you had. They want the hot one right now. And I think it was important to bring that to TV. So let's talk about the actual Snatch game. It was very nice to see Mother Raja again, and they used her at every given opportunity to cut to her making a face looking at Raven so that we as the audience knew the panel's not feeling this. This is not a good performance. A lot of people have been talking online about the crown that they gave Raven was Tyra's crown from season 2. So does that mean that Raven has been officially crowned as the season 2 winner? Or was it just a tongue-in-cheek moment? Bosco performed as Kenny Kerr. It was a kind of mid-performance overall, in my opinion. I thought her performance in season 14 was funnier than this one, mostly because I thought Bosco was just kind of playing Bosco. I also think it is a difficult choice to choose someone who's a shapeshifter, who does a lot of character illusions in their day-to-day gig. And I think choosing to do two characters we've already seen on Drag Race in the Snatch game, Joan Rivers and Cher, was a bold move because they weren't necessarily that much braver than what we saw Jimbo or Chad do. And they weren't funnier. They were okay impressions, but they were filtered through someone else, so they were a little more meta. This game within a game within a game meta that Bosco was doing, I think just didn't plug in well to the formula of what Snatch Game is. Not that it was bad, it just isn't a breakout. A really big swing for maybe less of a payoff. I would have rather have just seen a really solid performance as one particular person, personally. Georges performed as Pitbull. She certainly did. Y'all, I am shedding my personal bias so hard. It's not that I don't like Georges, it's just I don't think that she belongs in this group. Not after coming right off of All Stars 9, and I have been very solid in that stance since this season began, and I just don't align with a lot of her choices that she makes. I hated this a lot. To me, it was not funny. To me, it was boring. And what I hated the most was that when she was not playing to Rue, she was playing to Mistress in the bottom right corner. Mistress to Georges was that friend that you bring to the party because they're the one you know. You don't really know anybody else there. So you spend your whole evening conversing with them and lingering around them, talking with their friends and sort of letting them take the lead. And when they wander away, you kind of wander with them. Like, Mistress was basically a safety blanket for Georges to interact with in the Snatch game. And conversely, Georges was that for Mistress, and I got bored with that. A lot of people online are living for Georges. I am someone who very typically goes against the grain, not because I'm trying to be quirky, but because I don't like to be spoon-fed things, and I don't follow the narrative that producers try to feed me. I inform my own decisions, and my own personal decision was that I did not like this. The end. Daya was performing as Jane Lynch via Sue Sylvester, which was a crazy choice. The look was insanely funny, I gotta say. I laughed right away because the illusion was there, the voice was there, the character choices were there. Snatch Game is about being funny, yes. It is about playing to Rue, yes. And it is also about a damn good character illusion. Imagine if Chad Michaels had done all of the Cher things that she did back in season 4, but looked like Madonna. It wouldn't be as funny because she doesn't look like her, right? And so for me, what little they showed of Daya was very funny, and she looked just like the bitch. I laughed, and so that was my top. Cynthia was playing Count Dracula. I have a personal gripe about doing cryptids and monsters and fictional characters, and I have aired those out every season that we talk about Snatch Game. I hate that she picked this. I don't understand why she picked this. Whoever helped her prepare for this Snatch Game was not a good friend to her, because there's not a lot of funny jokes that you can do as Dracula for Snatch Game. I will say I'm so glad it was regular Snatch Game and not Of Love. That has been my biggest gripe about All Stars for years. I fucking hate Of Love, but I'm so glad they did regular. I'm assuming that they were preparing for Of Love and the bulk of the jokes were going to be about sucking. I can only assume. And Cynthia, not really having a lot of improv tools in her belt, was not able to adjust whatever she prepared to meet regular Snatch Game. I think as weird as Cynthia is, she needs someone who is equally kind of weird and chaotic that she can plug herself into and be able to translate her natural humor into someone else. I just don't know who that is. And I think that is a problem for Snatch Game in particular. Literally no one was vibing with this performance, and again, as I mentioned, I did not like the way that Rue kept checking in with the rest of the audience to find out what Cynthia was saying. What I personally think is weird is that when Cynthia takes the character of Dracula and transforms them into like a WeHo gay, having that first answer be Botox is what has kept them young, and making some tongue-in-cheek jokes that are very different than what we would expect from Dracula, that unexpected route is confusing. There's a giant question mark under what she's doing for Rue specifically. But when Trinity Taylor makes the devil gay, or when Jules Sparkle makes a Bigfoot a yassified, queenie, straight dude, there is zero question about what they're doing. Were Jules and Trinity funny? Yes. That is not the point. The point is that these characters were a departure from what we would expect them to be. Cynthia's character was a departure from what it was supposed to be. But there was no two-factor authentication from RuPaul to the panel or anybody in the room about what Jules and Trinity were doing. There was, however, that for Cynthia. And there was no rerouting of these two characters into something that Rue wanted to see for Trinity and Jules, but there was for Cynthia. As a famous entertainer once said, that was weird for me. I'm talking about this too much. I did not like the performance at all. It just bothered me the way that Rue was tackling it. I have said again and again, Rue has every capability of volleying with people and understanding what they're doing, and she picks and chooses when she wants to do that. And seeing her fundamentally misunderstand what Cynthia was doing was not cute for me. Para me. But Cynthia was bad. Like really, really, really bad. Irene was playing Zsa Zsa Gabor. As someone who was quite literally obsessed with Ava Gabor in not only Green Acres, but also The Rescuers. And I watched The Rescuers on loop because I thought Bianca as a character was so CUNTY, and I loved Green Acres for the exact same reason. I understand that Hungarian accent quite well. I could pick it out from a lineup if everyone were speaking in that accent. I'd be able to say, that one is the Gabors. Irene was doing like Katya, which was a little bit of a head scratcher for me, but also Hungarian's a hard accent to nail, but it was fundamentally very different. And that's a nitpick because I am quite literally obsessed with the Gabors. I think they are fascinating people. I think this was a well-studied character. She even got that famous quote about being a great housekeeper. When she divorces a man, she keeps the house. That is a famous quote. I don't even think Rue understood that that was a direct quote because she barely acknowledged it. She kind of did her like, uh-huh. I will give props to Irene that this was not as bad as it could have been. A lot of first-time Snatch gamers and all-stars, like I'm looking at Kahana or India, were people that never did Snatch Game in their original season and then had to stumble through it in All Stars. She did a fairly well job. Aja was playing Cookie Tookie. I only know of this person because of Willem's beatdown. I giggled. I thought the physical comedy was fun. I enjoyed what she did visually. It did not get repetitive to me. Was it hilarious? Absolutely not. I thought it was very, very, very safe. Lydia was playing Pete Burns. I think this was, again, very well studied, but not terribly funny. Where Lydia really shined this week was on the runway, where she had one of the most gorgeous outfits of everyone on that stage, in my opinion. When Lydia first spoke, that pan to Raja looking at Raven and making a face was an automatic indicator that Lydia was not going to be in a safe or high position this week. They wanted us to understand right away that that was the first shoe in the door for Lydia's bottom placement. Overall, I found her performance a little unfunny. It was very restrained. It wasn't bad, I just didn't giggle at it. She seemed a lot more hesitant to be here this time around, and I have a little pet theory about that. When Lydia was on bracket 2, she had maybe been off of Drag Race for 5 days. Literally no one in the world knew Lydia's name attached to Drag Race. People knew of Lydia because of the chapel opener performance. I'm sure people in her local area knew who she was, but the world did not know who Lydia B. Collins was. This, from my understanding, was filmed right after the lip sync slay-off of season 17. So the season had aired. Lydia had been getting bookings and calls and performances and touring and had to put all of that on hold, a big pause, to step away for 2 to 3 weeks to go and film the second bracket. She has to pause all of her social media interactions and disappear. And people already knew that Lydia was going to be on All Stars, so she has to doubly and triply hide that she's going away again. She's probably hearing all of these nitpicks and critiques about her already going back to All Stars. She's probably very stressed about that experience, about going back and trying to be better and keeping up with her 17 run and being better than that. And also having to stop working to go and film something else. Literally putting a giant pause where every one of her fellow contestants are all still working and getting gigs and making a lot of money right now. Having to stop all of that would stress the hell out of me. And maybe that informed why she seemed like she didn't feel super comfortable being here. Ginger was playing Reba. Specifically was going for Reba Hart from the Reba show, mixed with elements of fancy, which I think was a decision. I thought it was odd because she's dressed as Red Dress Fancy from the performance, when Reba takes off typically her black outfit over it and reveals into the sparkly red sex worker outfit. I have done that number before in a nightclub. I have watched Reba perform that number a billion times. But then she's doing memes of a single mom who works 2 jobs. The ones that were floating all around TikTok, making jokes about the thin lips and working at a fast food restaurant, but then also being a phone sex worker. I think Reba's a hard one to make funny because she's a legend and she's very kind and sweet, and you don't want to disrespect her by going too outside the box. I think Reba jokes make more sense in movement. Lip syncing to a single mom who works 2 jobs while vacuuming and also pan frying something in your other hand. I think the gag was supposed to be that she looks like Fancy, but then is talking like Reba Hart. And me being a major Reba fan and having been a Reba fan for many, many years, it was fine to me. I also clocked that Ginger made a callback to her Phyllis Diller performance where she talked about her boobs being down to her knees. She did that in All Stars 6, so clock Ginger Minge, I see you. I do love a callback. I think they're very fun. I love when a queen references themselves. I don't think Rue understood that that's what was happening, and honestly, that's okay, because if you can recycle a joke that Rue is not gonna remember you already doing, good for you. And placing her next to Mistress was to sell us a very specific story, and I just didn't really care about that story. Which, speaking of Mistress, she was playing Natalie Nunn. I don't know this person at all. Rue was not feeling this person at all. I think that Mistress definitely deserved a slice of humble pie after going so hard on Ginger all week, even if she was trying to just be silly about it and get in her head. And her thinking that her Rosie performance was so spectacular on season 15. Which in my opinion, I agree with Irene. I think that Mistress's Rosie was crunchy, and I think it was only good because there were so many filler queens in that Snatch game. And she's lucky that those filler queens were worse than her. And I think also playing an aggro character is really difficult to do because there's only one avenue for you to take, and that's be aggro. And in an improv setting, the aggro character is the one who makes someone else look better. And she was the stooge for Ginger unintentionally. Because Ginger is playing this sweet, nice, kind, congenial character next to Mistress who's standing up and yelling. It's uncomfortable to watch, and it makes Ginger look better, honestly. And it also becomes dull, it's repetitive. And especially in short form content like what Snatch Game is, where your best moments will be watered down into one streamlined package, that character is not going to be fun for the camera. And it dulls out quicker. Speaking of short form content, this Snatch Game was incredibly fast. I just finished watching Drag Race Philippines Snatch Game, which was delightfully large, featured a ton of questions and lots of answers from the panel, so it felt really nice to watch. And then I watched this, and it did not stack up at all. It was so tiny. I found this entire thing mid to slightly unfunny, and I think that's the editor's fault. These girls had so much time to prepare for this, and it could have been everything, but it wasn't. I also noticed that Cynthia had a bloodshot prop, and Mistress had her alcohol, but neither one of them got to use them in their sessions. Did the Snatch Game get cut short early? Or did they use their props and it just didn't get shown? And then the runway prompt this week is Tear Me Suit, which is to remove a suit into something that is a sleigh. Once again, I am here to complain. I have a personal gripe about reveal runways. I'm tired of them. I'm tired of them. They're effective when we don't know they're coming, like Camden's Chaps on the Runway, where she comes out in the outfit, trips, puts on the mustache, wig comes off, and it's a more masculine look, right? But when they prime us, hey, it's a reveal, I'm automatically bored. I love a mixed pattern, so I liked what Bosco did, not only for the suit, but for the reveal. And I love the chevroning of those patterns. Mixed patterns are something that I think is really critical for such a dull topic like tearaway suit. Blah. But it also kind of puts people like Bosco at a disadvantage because she came into All Stars 10 in a quasi suit. I think that it was fun. It was number 4 in my lineup out of the 9. George's came out next in a bulky, unfitted suit that I did not enjoy at all. And then revealed into this Doja Cat-esque style outfit that was asymmetrical. And this girlie thought that she was serving Butch in that first look. Teehee. I think the reveal was more interesting than the tearaway, and I think that's honestly what the problem was with a lot of these looks, is that the tearaway was an afterthought. It was my number 5. Daya came out wearing a tracksuit. What a fun take on this prompt, in my opinion. Like, who would think about doing a tracksuit? I love the athleticism of this look, doing the workout performance and then revealing into a sweaty undershirt, where the sweat stains are bedazzled and rhinestoned. That is so clever. I love when drag is kind of gross, and this was gross. The sweat stains all over the garment were fun. It was a great interpretation of the concept. I love that she had the long socks on with the stripe and then a matching jockstrap, and that jockstrap was rhinestoned. Yes to this. This is drag. I love that it was humorous. I love that it was a little nasty. It was kind of camp. This was absolutely a slay to me from the reveal to the tearaway. And the looks were cohesive. It made sense why this transformation was happening. There was a cohesive story all the way through. This was my number 3. Cuckoo was next in a massive, gigantic suit. It was so unfitted, and I want the tearaway to be somewhat fitted. I thought Acid was gonna help her out in this round. This was just way too much on little tiny Cynthia, and it was not choreographed at all because she struggled to take it off. And I think that really hammered in her bottom placement into position. What I did like the best is the layers of the coffee colors that were all throughout the garment. I thought it was a nice reference to the dessert. The prompt though was to tear away and slay. And the underdress was, yeah, it wasn't a slay at all, mama. This was number 8 for me. Irene was next out. Her suit was this funky intersection of Art Deco meets 40s Palm Springs mogul. I think the mask was incredible, and the tearaway into this fleshy alien was stunning. The tearaway was a slay, the underlook was a slay. This was my number 2. Aja was out next in a, again, huge unfitted suit. Going for more of a butterfly effect. I like the idea of a cocoon. You know how like a butterfly's in a cocoon and then it comes down the runway and I'm the butterfly in the cocoon and I'll be coming out of the cocoon. I liked the paisley print of the butterfly look, but it was overall kind of mid to me. I absolutely wish so hard that the suit looked more like Metapod. And I would have loved for that reveal to have been Butterfree. Imagine a shiny bodysuit underneath with those bright blue accents somewhere on it, and then a train of black and white stained glass that were meant to be the wings. And then she could carry in the Pokemon story from Orange Bracket to this one. I think it would have made sense for Aja. Aja was number 7 for me in the lineup. Lydia is out next in what I think was the best suit of the entire evening. That was one of the most stunning things I've ever seen on Lydia because it was so pared down from the normal chaos that we see of her looks. It was so clean and effortless. That sparkly black with that metallic turquoise. Oh, it was perfection. Where a lot of queens failed on this runway, in my opinion, was in the suit because they were just huge. Where Lydia had something that was tailored and fitted. And a lot of them were just these big bulky garments that were meant to be taken off. And I love that Lydia didn't do that. I did not care for Carson's critique that the dress needed to be steamed because it was clearly steamed. Just the bottom was wrinkled a little bit because it was hyped up. It was in something and then revealed out. If anything, the critique should be on textile choice because that fabric does wrinkle quite easily. And so maybe a suggestion of choosing a different fabric would have been a better critique. And also, saying that Lydia should prepare better before coming to a tournament of All-Stars is a whack-ass critique when we as the audience all know that Lydia got invited to All-Stars 5 days after she got off of season 17. And just because she had a break between that original bracket to now does not mean that she has the financial resources to then get fully prepared for Drag Race All-Stars when she was already there and spent more of her money on bracket 1. I'm just saying, I'm not even a Lydia stan, and I did not think those critiques were helpful or constructive. And it was very clearly, Dossier says, Lydia's bottom, solidify it somehow. Because that look was everything. I need more coffee for this. Lydia was my number 1. Ginger came out next in the worst suit that I've ever seen. This was a terrible fabric choice and a bad silhouette. I get that Ginger is doing this, look, I was busted and now I'm not thing, but choosing that nutso look for the effectiveness of just revealing to a fairly standard bridal look, Where Michelle is over Marie Antoinette, I am kind of over Bridal. It was cute, but it wasn't worth having to see the suit first. And also comparing that suit to Janelle Monáe was disrespectful to Janelle Monáe. Like, she should apologize for that. This was my number 6. Mistress was last, doing a fat suit into probably one of the most basic dresses I've ever seen on Drag Race ever. I understand the story, I get it, I really do. The fat suit was a little muppety, which I don't associate her drag with at all. And the reveal to the shiny surface skirt that didn't even hit the floor. I already hate this category because I think it's dull and boring, and Mistress's reveal sort of locked in why I think it's boring and dull. This was my number 9. The judges absolutely lived for Ginger and Georges, which informs to me how they're going to judge the next 2 episodes, because as we've seen in every single one of the brackets, whoever made a splash in that first episode typically made splashes in episode 2 and 3 of each respective bracket. And this, I think, was a hard one to judge because they didn't really have a lot of positive critiques about Snatch Game from really anybody. Everyone got such mid critiques, and I didn't know who they were gonna give it to. I personally would have given the win to Daya. I know that we didn't see a lot of her Snatch Game, but I think that was strategic because they knew that she was safe, so they couldn't show her doing well in Snatch Game. I personally think her Aussie was very funny in season 14, so I know that the rest of her Sue Sylvester character would have been hilarious. And I liked her runway better. Ginger ultimately does win, which is whatever to me. Clap if you're surprised. Clap if you're surprised. The bottom 2 is Mistress and Cynthia. And I think that Mistress was down here as a storytelling device to show us Ginger's star rising, and Mistress, her adversary's star, starting to decline. There are a lot of people who I think could have been in the bottom instead of Mistress, but I do think that Cynthia was the absolute chop of the night. I think the other bottom 2 easily could have been Aja, could have been Mistress, but I also think it could have been Georges. Sorry, I didn't think it was funny. Let me paint you a picture here, a TV picture, if you will. Ginger, our hero of our story, is getting picked on by Mistress, a bully. Mistress is advocating to get in her head and tries to pick at her in the Snatch Game and is annoying and untucked. Ginger wins the challenge and Mistress is in the bottom 2. So we as an audience get this moment of, the bully getting punished. The one who caused so much trouble in pink bracket that now they're getting a slice of humble pie. And Ginger, our hero, is about to march her way to victory because she's clearing the competition. That's what they want us to think. I'm not buying the story. I already knew that's what they were going to do, and I saw that happening as of last week. But what did y'all think? Are you buying the story? Cuckoo and Mistress have to lip sync to an a cappella version of an Aretha Franklin song. An a cappella remix of an Aretha Franklin song. Are you telling me that you got Aretha motherfucking Franklin as a licensing and chose the most unlip syncable remix possible? What in gay hell, man? This was BS. You need those beats. You need a rhythm. You need something to attach yourself to. Even in spoken word where there's no music, there's usually a rhythm on why things get lip sync. Pretty much what I would let Gemma know is that she is a, you know the words, say them with me. There's a natural rhythm and beat in there that New York is doing, and you as a drag artist can follow along with that beat. When you choose to do an a cappella song, a number that is meant to be sung, but you are lip syncing to, and there's no instrumentation behind it, you remove everything that is synergistic about what drag queens are doing. This was a setup to make whoever was in the bottom 2 look stupid. I will not be convinced otherwise. And I think it was specifically chosen this week because Mistress was bullying Ginger, so they wanted her to look dumb. I don't care that Mistress did her boob thing. I was uncomfortable by the choice that production did to these queens. It's disrespectful to bring them all the way in here, have them pause their careers and lives to come and do Drag Race and then give them an a cappella version. I said I did not want to get hot today, but I am hot over this lip sync choice. There are 100,000 songs in the world that they could choose, and they picked this one. Right. And the most embarrassing song in a playlist they could have ever picked happens to go to 2 Latinos. Right. Next week is a talent show. Not a ball, which I was hoping for. But I guess a ball would be harder to keep Ginger out of the bottom. And doing a talent show means they can force a storyline because a lot of people think that Georgia should have won her All Stars 9 talent show, so they can sort of give her a consolation prize win here. And I think that's what they'll do. I can see a huge storyline of them putting Irene in the bottom since she bombed in her talent show, and I could see them also putting Daya in the bottom because she went home on her talent show. So I could see them forcing a storyline because Drag Race loves to do that. And I could see a lot of pressure on Aja already because she did so well in her talent show. You know what I would have loved? I would have loved if each bracket had started with a talent show. I think that would have been a better way to open up each one of the brackets. Set a bar of energy for us as an audience, but I digress. Overall, I hated this episode. It bummed me out to see how the season is likely going to finish. I kind of expected it to go this way, but I was hoping it wouldn't. And I'm kind of just ready for it all to be over. Utica is going to be on Project Runway in just a couple of weeks, and Soa Demuse is about to be back on my screen in a couple of weeks for France All-Stars. So I just want to get through the rest of this season as painlessly as possible. What did you think about this episode? Let me know in the comments below, and I will see y'all on the flip.